The Far Quest, The Chronicles of Cursoon, Book 1, by R. Jason Lynch, copyright 2016, EMP 2023, all rights reserved. Chapter 16, Compassion Awakes. It was much warmer outside Baleful's den, but Cursoon's long stay within the muddy cave made it so that he still trembled with a terrible chill. Thus, after Tippleglee had the flames burning brightly, the bard drew near to warm himself, and it felt so good that he thanked the King of Heaven for the blessing of fire.
I can't believe the trollop lives in this cold, wet swamp while wearing little to no clothes.
Cursoon marveled. Tippleglee made no reply. Instead, he sat on another broken log and took out a ornately carved wooden pipe. Filling it with pipeweed, he lit it and took a long puff. The smoke had a sweet, pleasant odor. Seeing that the little man was going to keep quiet, Cursoon filled the silence.
I suppose she's used to the cold,
he mused.
Or perhaps her stony skin is numb to such things.
As he said this, he continued to hold his hands out to the fire. He was just beginning to regain the feeling in his fingers when the giantess returned. Baleful was carrying a recently slaughtered horse over her rocky shoulder. With a splash, she dropped the poor creature into the great cauldron, and in this way she began to cook the animal even though it was neither gutted nor skinned. Cursoon scurried away from the sloshing water and then asked without thinking,
"Where did you get that horse?"
A deep rumbling laugh issued from the trollop.
"I spies the prettiest little carriage coming down the road, and so I's took its 'orses as a toll. We's eat this one now and let the other ripen a bit more."
Though the bard said nothing, a clear look of disgust was upon his bearded face.
"Yuz don't like the taste of 'orse?"
Baleful asked with a menacing grin.
No,
Cursoon answered plainly.
it's a cruel practice, eating horses.
"Do yuz eat cows?"
The trollop replied.
Well, yes.
The bard answered with a shrug.
"And how's that any less cruel than eating 'orse?"
Baleful asked with a scoffing chuckle.
Well,
Cursoon shrugged.
horses are smarter than cows.
"So the stupid creers don't mares to yez none?"
I didn't say that.
The bard protested.
"How's yez know cows are stupider than 'orses?"
Cursoon opened his mouth as if to answer, but no words came to his mind.
"What about pigs? They smart,"
She offered.
"Do yez eat them?"
The bard shifted uncomfortably and glanced at Tippleglee for his help, but the little man seemed to be ignoring them both.
Well,
Cursoon started with a shrug.
"I's tell you what, instead of eating this poor lil' 'orsey..."
The trollop paused and feigned a thoughtful look while petting the dead creature.
"How's about old Bogra just eat yays? D'yaz like that bear?"
She added this last part with a growling sneer. The bard swallowed hard and said nothing more. As Baleful prepared her meal, Cursoon was able to fully look upon her for the first time, and the sight made him grimace with disgust. To add to the trollop's ugly face, she had a thick slanted brow and overly small pointed ears. From her huge flattened head, dull black hair hung down in long, ragged tangles. Even with a hunched back, Baleful was every bit of 16 feet tall. She stood upon two bent legs, and her oversized feet had gnarled toes with broken and chipped nails. While her tree-sized legs looked short in proportion with the rest of her body, her arms were overly long, ending in huge, meaty hands with thick, mannish fingers, and these, too, had unkempt nails. From her broad, bare chest, two great breasts hung like empty waterskins, swaying with her every movement, and yet they were so caked in muddy filth that their details were obscured. Her great, sagging breasts eclipsed her swollen stomach to the point that it was hardly noticeable. While the trollop's whole body was covered with rocky-looking warts, they grew so thickly upon her back that it looked as though she wore a shawl of rough stone. With the pot on the boil, Baleful sat back against the side of the hill, where the tunnel to her den opened. There, she considered the bard with a growl, and after a short time of brooding, the trollop began to speak in a lowered tone.
"I's killed a troll once,"
she admitted with a cruel smile. Cursoon's brow furrowed.
Why would you murder one of your own?
"I's had little choice,"
the giantess replied after pursing her dry gray lips.
"He'd a killed old Bugra if I's hadn't slit his throat first."
But why?
The bard asked with growing curiosity.
"Like I's told ya, trolls are all wrath and no cunning.
Baleful reminded him.
They's don't think about what they's doing, they's just mad."
She shrugged her huge gray shoulders.
"Anyways, I's came upon him after he'd tired himself out with raging.
The trollop's gaze was distant like before.
I's wanted another little babe. I's missing my firstborn something awful, so I snuck up on that sleeping troll and took what I's wanted from him. But the whole time, I's kept my knife at his throat. After all, I's wasn't there when he passed out, so how's I's know when he's waking up again?"
She growled menacingly.
"Oh, and wake up he did. His eyes popped open the very moment he gave what old Bugra wanted, and how they's were full of rage. I's didn't wait a second. I's opened his throat from ear to ear."
She drew her huge hand across her gray warty neck, mimicking the action.
"And yet he still gave me's a crack across the face that sent old Bugra sprawling. He would have done more, but he bled out first."
Pointing at a massive scar that split her left cheekbone, she added ominously,
"He left old Bugra this to remember him by."
Why would you want to have children with such a cruel brute?
the bard asked with a note of compassion seeping into his voice.
"What?
The trollop growled sarcastically.
Should I's look for a fine little lord like yous to do the deed? Yous gonna help old Bugra out? Give her some of yous baby seed?"
This idea made Baleful chuckle to herself. Cursoon shifted uncomfortably, and this caused the trollop to cackle all the more. The sound was much like clapping thunder echoing out into the swamp, but soon it was replaced by a fit of coughing. When her hacking quieted, Cursoon's curiosity got the best of him once more.
So, did you ever have any more children?
"Old Bugra's had 6 others over the years."
Baleful replied, wiping black syrupy liquid from her dry lips.
"But they's all gone now."
They aren't dead, are they?
Cursoon asked with a look of shock. He suddenly thought of his own sons.
"I's got no way of knowing."
She shrugged.
"They's all left me one by one, and I's ain't seen 'em since."
Why would they leave you and never return?
The bard looked puzzled.
"I suppose they didn't like it when I's beat 'em.
She answered with a cruel chuckle.
But they's had no cause to complain. After all, I's only beat 'em when a foul mood took me's. Bah! Old Bugra's mum did worse."
Disbelief, horror, and pity silently blended themselves upon Cursoon's face.
"Anyways,"
The trollop continued without noticing his mixed expression.
"I's have to admit, I's miss the little imps sometimes. That's why I's didn't kill yous when I saw your shield, like I said. I's heard yours tale and felt sort of bad for yous."
My shield?
Cursoon echoed with a curious look. The giantess went on as if she had not heard him.
"So, now you see why your story can't be true? If old Bugra cut a sleeping troll's throat, and he still's able to crush half of her face in before he died, how'd yours lil never-save manage to cut a raging troll's head off?"
After saying this, Baleful fell silent for a moment, as if she were trying to make up her mind about something. After a few more minutes, she spoke again.
"If yours tales be true, old Bugra wants to know it, so I's make this bargain with yous. If yez go and bring back one of those fruits that yez claim eels, and it can heal me, then I's know yez tale's true, and I's let you go free.
Cursoon could hardly believe his ears.
You'll let me go free if I bring you a fruit glimmering as proof that my story is true?
Isn't that what I's just said?
Baleful answered grumpily while shifting irritably and crossing her great arms. The sound of them sliding together was like that of someone sharpening a blade upon a whetting stone.
But why?
The bard replied with a hint of skepticism.
I's dying, and I's rather not.
She answered plainly with a shrug. Cursoon began to pace back and forth.
But I can't get distracted by this quest. After all, I'm already upon a quest of my own. I'm looking for my wife and sons, and cannot delay.
The bard argued.
Yez find nothing stewing in my's pot.
Baleful retorted impatiently, but a note of desperation revealed itself within her tone.
Besides, likes it or no, they's probably off in some other landlord's castle, all warm and cozy, while ye's cold and miserable in old Bugra's swamp. Let me's ask yez this. How much of Riven yez going to search for yez give up on finding 'em? I's ain't never seen none of my's children again, and old Bugra searched the world over.
She added with a rumbling sigh that ended in a small fit of coughing. When the fit had passed, Baleful wiped away the black juice from her mouth and held it for the bard to see. There was no question that it was black spittle which had been expelled from her lungs.
See, I's coughing up my's own blood.
The trollop growled and then rose to stomp off into the ruined wood. Her deep, gruff voice echoed back through the broken trees as she added in parting,
Yars give yars answer when I's come back, or I's twist off one of yars arms.
With those menacing words, Baleful disappeared into the swamp. Cursoon watched the giantess leave, but as he did so, his gaze was softer than all the other times he had watched her go. Suddenly, even her terrible threats seemed empty to the bard. Her seemingly hopeless situation pricked his heart.